What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today, talking about another pretty highly anticipated underground release, talking about the latest offering from VoidCeremony. Figure out how to pronounce this one. ABDITUM? I think I got that right. But this also came out on November 14th, this time on 20 Bucks Spin. This is the band's third studio full-length overall. I got into this band with their last album, Threads of Unknowing, I believe it was called. And I thought that was an awesome album, and it made my year-end list. I believe that was 2023. So only a couple years, so a shorter gap between that and this compared to the debut to Threads of Unknowing. For those who don't know, this is a California-based progressive death metal, almost blackened death metal, technical death metal. However, I would say on this album, the blackened death metal is pretty much gone. And this is just straight up progressive death metal, bordering on technical death metal as well. And yeah, so let's go ahead and dive into it. So yeah, you have an intro and an outro, which can be a bit annoying at times unless they're done really well, which I will say they're musical, but I do feel like they kind of get in the way of this album. But aside from that, we go into the proper opening track, Voracious Duality, and right out of the rip, you get the idea of what this album is all about. It is just absolutely bonkers. Like, this is like, the best way I could describe this album is if, like, BT Bam had an old school death metal approach. Because, like, this album, it's so, like, whimsical at times, but still, like, very bonkers with how it just goes through all these different time shifts and transitions into certain riffs or certain drum patterns. It's just all over the map. Like, with this opening track, like, you get nasty old school death metal riffs, but these time signature changes and odd time rhythms just really make everything just sound like it's just going off the rails, but in a good way. But you still get, like, awesome death metal chugs, very much kind of like Morbid Angel and Immolation to an extent. But whenever it gets into these, like, more angular riffs, which angular riffs are just plastered all throughout this album, when it gets into them angular riffs, it definitely gets more towards technical death metal, I would say, to the level of bands like Atheist, Obscura, hell, even like recent Job for a Cowboy at times. But it still remains very proggy. Then we get into seventh, how the hell do you say this word? Seventh Ephemeral Aura. Definitely gets a little bit more towards like old school death metal with these tremolos, but it also still brings in a little bit more melody. Like, there's more melody coming in, but again, just absolutely bonkers guitars. But you also get some, like, pretty cool, like, triplet rhythms. And it gets a little more on the atonal side of things, like, almost like Voivod at times, with how just atonal and wild the time signature shifts go down. But then you start to get, like, a little bit of, like, almost a jazz fusion feel, particularly in the lead work. Like, lead work on this album is unbelievable. Like, it's very, like, jazz fusion inspired guitar leads, kind of like Frederick Thorndahl or even Paul Masvidal style leads on this entire album. But I will say there are some really strange harmonies to just add to the weirdness of this album, but it does get into, like, some pretty cool groove towards the end, like, more straightforward to kind of break up the insanity. The song Dissolution, kind of a really cool, like, melodic interlude that was under a minute, and then we get to a nearly 1 minute 45 second track with Despair of Temporal Existence. It is under 2 minutes, but it is a gnarly, wild 2 minutes. Like, they don't waste time. Like, they go into these really nasty riffs, but with great technical play, kind of like a heavier Obscura track. Blast beats, awesome leads and harmonies, angular tremolo guitars. Like, it is just, again, the word I'm saying is bonkers a lot. Failure of Ancient Wisdoms. This is where you start to get influence from the band Death. Like, after the blast and tremolo section, the melodies and harmonies definitely feel a lot closer to, like, late era Death, like individual thought patterns, symbolic, the sound of perseverance. But it does go back and forth between, like, feeling a little more straightforward, but at the same time you get some off-time rhythms going on. But actually the drum work, I gotta talk about the drum work on this album. I don't know how this drummer is just going for everything. And this is actually the first album without Charlie Corrin as the drummer. Instead, Charlie actually does the production on this album, and he does a pretty good job with the mix, making sure everything's audible in the mix. He did a great job with everything. So my man Charlie, if you see this, you really nailed it with the production, because I don't know how I would have been able to make sure everything stood out with how bonkers this album gets. But clean melodies at the very end to kind of add a little bit of, like, beauty to the beast. Silent Witch Ceases All Minds. Again, like, very much straight up prog death metal. Like, it's off time, deathly riffs, triplet chugs come back. It gets a little bit on the thrashier side of the scale. And again, just wild transitions. And then we get to the closer, Gnosis of Ambivalence. Again, we kind of go back a little bit to the Death influence, like the melodies, the riff work. Feels like it could have been stuff off of Symbolic or Sound of Perseverance, but it does get into, like, more Morbid Angel tremolos. But again, the harmonies and melodies that come in later, just very angular, very complex, and love the leads. Like, I'd say the lead work on this track was maybe some of the best lead work on the entire album. But again, grooves come back, some darker tremolos, and then a really pretty piano ending with the outro track. So yeah, this album is just going for every trope of progressive death metal and technical death metal, but not coming off as wankery, but just coming off as bonkers and challenging and really complex. Now, as far as any negatives, I will say I've used the word bonkers a lot in this review, and it's because it's both a good and a bad thing. Good in the sense that they're able to play these parts without missing in certain spots. Where it's a bad thing is that it does make the album sound a little bit too busy for itself, especially with it being an under 30-minute album. It just kind of makes everything drag a little bit with how busy it gets. But overall, I still think this is an awesome album, all things considered. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I thought this was, another great offering. I don't think I like it as much as Threads of Unknowing, because I thought Threads of Unknowing brought in a little bit more, like, restraint behind the songwriting, per se. But still, if you are a fan of, I would say, like, Blood Incantation, Time Ghoul, Morbid Angel, later era Death, Obscura, Atheist, I'd say check this out. This is some really good stuff. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.